Senator Booker. Yeah, we're good.
I cannot tell you how frustrated I am listening to the answers that you've given here that to me are utterly unacceptable. You know that there's a number of us who have served in executive positions. We have governors, county executive, as Coons has said. I ran a city during a recession, cut 25% from my workforce overall. I know what it means to do a RIF right, but this has been chaos. It has been cruelty. And your answers, frankly, have just lacked decency, as if you don't care about a lot of the employees whose lives have been destroyed after years, if not decades, of service. Now, I want to be very specific. Clearly, you're not standing up for people who've dedicated their lives to this country, but I'm going to stand up for them. And so let's talk about some of these people in real life and what you've done. A technical security specialist who just moved all of his belongings to Pakistan. He was fired as he was heading there to ensure our embassies in the region were safe. Hours after the movers left his home, he was fired, leaving a massive security gap of this administration's making. On Friday, you fired rapid response consular officers who deployed to provide emergency services for Americans overseas. The rapid response officers you fired were both actively deployed, leaving one stranded in Colombia and the other in Ankara without access to their emails or phones and without plane tickets home. The cruelty continues. One of the officers was a veteran with 24 years of federal service who had helped Americans during the Afghanistan withdrawal and the Sudan evacuation, that deserve better from you and the United States government for their service. At a time that there's a hot war in Ukraine, and President Trump is claiming to try to foster a peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia, you fired the only Ukraine intelligence analyst and Russia analyst in the Intelligence and Research Bureau. You fired the executive director of the National Authority for Chemical Weapons.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm your independent political analyst, and this is where we dive deep into the biggest political flashpoints with clarity, context, and a nonpartisan lens. No spin, just facts, honest reactions, and critical insight. Today, we're unpacking a fiery exchange between Senator Cory Booker and Mr. Riggus, a State Department official, during a Senate hearing over what's been described as mass layoffs or reductions in force affecting critical government personnel. Let's walk through what happened, what it means, and why this matters for country, and most importantly, for the people who serve it.
Convention, while we are trying to get the new government in Syria to locate and destroy remaining stockpiles of chemical weapons that threaten the security of that region and us. You fired human trafficking experts, including everyone with human trafficking experience in the Middle East, North Africa, and South and Central Asia, as if that is not an urgent crisis amongst humanity and for this nation. Apart from the national security implications of all of these firings, despite the cruel way that you guys executed them, the human toll is also staggering. One of the human trafficking experts you fired, showing the level of cruelty of your actions, has a wife who was just fired by USAID. She's pregnant. And now he just got fired as well. Two people trying to start their family with no income and now even their health insurance in limbo, who gave years of service to this country. You even fired all the staff at the Office of Casualty Assistance who are charged with repatriating fallen State Department personnel and their families, including those working on behalf of employees killed in the Benghazi attacks. We have a solemn and sacred duty to bring home bodies of American citizens who die while serving their countries and helping their help their families. It's a sacred obligation. Every major corporation I know, we've talked about business sector, knows that the most valuable thing they can do is get a pipeline of talent and personnel. I've talked to CEOs who've told me they spend between 25% and a third of their time recruiting talent, but despite telling us that the recruitment office would face no cuts, on Friday, you fired the entire recruitment division, lying to us and eliminating that pipeline of talent. To the civil service and foreign officers who are watching this right now, hoping they can get some justification for the chaos you've created, for the cruelty you've put into place, for the lack of decency, I'm going to tell those folks right now that we are going to stand up for each and every one of those folks and fight for them at a time that China is doubling down on their investments in diplomatic corps, trying to fill every void that we create. You are devastating our corps, hurting Americans, undermining our sacred mission as well. And again, I don't trust you, Mr. Riggus. Yesterday you said no one at Council Affairs would be fired. That's false. Over 100 Consular Affairs officers were fired. Again, you said no one with overseas assignments would be fired. That also is not true. I have examples of employees riffed all over this country who've had orders in hands. And we were told no diplomatic security agents would be fired. And again, not true. We are the United States Senate. We have an obligation for oversight, and you showed over the House hearing that even your statements lack veracity. I'm telling you right now, we are in a crisis in this country if you won't come here and represent facts. And to demonstrate that cruelty, to demonstrate the level of chaos and lack of decency of this administration, all of these cuts are being done in the name of saving taxpayers' money, but we're not doing that. We literally are giving tax cuts to billionaires and racking up the biggest deficits in my lifetime under this leadership that does not have fiscal responsibility. And the best demonstration of that is allowing millions of pounds or thousands of pounds of food that were supposed to save the lives of thousands of human beings, paid for by taxpayers, to spoil on docks. How is that in any way human decency? How is that in any way showing what we stand for as a country, that we would rather watch food spoil on the docks, taxpayer money absolutely wasted, while children around this world are dying because of your inaction and that of your agency? Sir, you have not been truthful. You are showing a lack of decency to people who've given decades of service, veterans. You've upended families. This is not the way we operate. It is not the decency that they deserve. And I will stand up and fight you in every way to make sure that the people you have hurt get from this country what they deserve: respect and honor. Thank you.
Senator Shaheen.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, you may.
I am deeply distressed by everything you just said.
I'm distressed by everything you've done,
Excuse
sir.
me.
I've watched you lie to this committee.
You
I've watched
did
you
not.
lie on the House side.
You did not.
I'm sorry,
if
sir.
If you were here when I addressed Senator Merkley on that consular affairs statement, I told him immediately after that, the next sentence after that in my House testimony, I
What about the other
clarified
lies that I've said? I've pointed out. What about the other lies?
Diplomatic.
You want to go through them one by one?
Diplomatics, sir. Mr. Chairman, can I respond to the question?
You may respond.
We did not let go any diplomatic security personnel that were engaged in law enforcement functions. We did not let go any consular affairs personnel who were engaged in adjudicating passports. Mr. Chairman, can I answer the question, please? This is outrageous.
Senator Brooke, could you please let...
Sir, what is outrageous is your behavior.
So I will tell you, we gave humanitarian exceptions.
Senator, please let Mr. Riggus respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We let individuals who were RIFed, by the way, they're still on payroll, they're still getting pay and benefits, civil servants for the next 60 days, foreign service officers for the next 120 days, and then the other individuals who had requested compassionate exceptions because of medical or family issues were granted. And I can tell you that is in stark contrast to what I experienced when I was the acting director of the Office of Personnel Management at the end of the first Trump administration, when we requested of the incoming Biden administration that appointees who were pregnant, who had babies, some in the NICU, we said, could they please, because they were legally entitled to have family and medical leave for 12 weeks, sir.
Is to blame Biden.
Weeks.
I've heard this time and time
No, you
again.
have
Is
not.
to blame
You've
Biden.
never heard this before, sir, because
Sir,
it's never been
you are
entered
trying
into
to
the congressional
you're
record.
trying to delay.
I would like
You're
the
trying to
ability to
deny,
respond.
and you're trying to denigrate this committee by not telling the truth. Sir, I want to enter the record literally an impeachment of what he just said. May I enter into the record this document demonstrating that he did indeed fire people who were in charge of doing technical work for the security of our people overseas. You lied to this committee.
I did not,
and
sir.
I'd like
I
to
just
enter
told
this
you.
into the record.
Okay, just a minute. Senator Booker, you are allowed to enter it on the record.
Thank you very much.
So if we could, Mr. Mr. Riggus, please respond, and then we're going to move on.
I pointed out 4 factual errors where you lied to this committee.
sir.
I'm happy to listen if you go through each one.
As I've said
Senator
repeatedly
Booker,
in this
thank
committee, sir,
you. Yet I just want to allow Mr.
Thank you.
Riggus to respond, and then Senator Shaheen then has a couple more
Thank
questions.
you.
We'll
So,
wrap up.
as I've said repeatedly during this committee, and maybe you weren't here to hear that testimony, obviously people were let go from their jobs. It's a reduction in force. We had 13 people who were let go. That does not mean the function that they performed was necessarily eliminated. These functions that we wanted to move forward were carried on either in a combined bureau or in another office where those redundant functions were carried out. We said diplomatic security that was conducting law enforcement, there were no reductions in that law enforcement function. Consular affairs folks who were adjudicating passports, who were doing the customer service work that we want to see continue, were not reduced or eliminated. People who were in domestic positions is where these reductions in force were done.
But, sir, he's contraventing his own territory. You said that's regrettable, that there were at least 200 people that you at least showed some shred of decency.
I'm saying it's regrettable. Look, no one wants...
So you've made mistakes.
No, I'm saying...
Sir, so you have made mistakes.
What I'm
made no
expressing,
mistakes.
sir...
You're literally saying you've made no mistakes.
Senator Booker, thank you. I want to, Mr. Riggus, clearly this is going to go back and forth
Right.
here. I'd like you to maybe to respond maybe in 30 seconds, and we'll have Senator Shaheen.
I think you should respond to questions for the record, sir.
Thank you.
I'm happy to
He's
respond
speaking on
to
the
questions.
record.
Look,
so.
look, no one wants to lay someone off. I don't think we take any joy in laying people off or any kind of reduction in force, but we have to do what's best for the mission. We have to do what's best for the organization. The department has grown by 20,000 people since 2008. We're literally we let go 1,300 people. Every single one of those is hard for those individuals, for their families. You know, I've experienced unemployment in my life. I know what that's like. It's not pleasant for anyone, but we have to put the mission first, and we have to make sure the critical functions we want to execute are going to be done, and they're going to be done with respect to taxpayers in the United States. So
I find that insulting, demeaning, degrading to the people whose lives you've upended unjustifiably.
Yeah.
To put yourself out there.
Senator Shaheen, next round of question.
So let's start with Senator Booker's tone, which was passionate, pointed, and frankly, pretty emotional. He opened by stating his complete frustration with Mr. Riggus' responses during the hearing, accusing him of lacking decency and showing disregard for the lives and careers of those affected by recent layoffs in the State Department. Now, it's important to note, Booker himself is no stranger to executive-level management. He ran a city through a recession and has experienced what it's like to implement workforce reductions. So when he says he knows what RIF is a reduction in force, he's not speaking from the sidelines. He's saying this wasn't just standard budget tightening. He called it chaos and cruelty. And to be clear, this isn't just political theater. He backed his argument with specific, emotional examples. One of the most striking elements of Booker's argument was the personal toll. He talked about a technical security specialist who had just packed up his life to move to Pakistan to help safeguard U.S. embassies. Just as the movers left his home, he was fired mid-relocation. The mission he was meant to support, now left vulnerable. Then there were 2 rapid response consular officers, both deployed to help Americans in crisis overseas. They were fired while actively deployed, leaving one stranded in Colombia and another in Ankara, Turkey, with no access to government systems, no tickets home, and no warning. He cited a 24-year federal service veteran, a human trafficking expert, and even staff in charge of repatriating fallen U.S. personnel, including those who supported the families of the Benghazi victims, all reportedly terminated. That's not just a budget cut, that's a cultural and institutional disruption. Whether you're left, right, or center, we can all agree that's a gut punch to morale. Booker also argued these cuts pose a direct national security risk. Among the roles eliminated, according to his statement, the only Ukraine and Russian intelligence analysts in the Bureau of Intelligence and Research at a time when there's an active war in Ukraine, the executive director of the Chemical Weapons Convention, which handles oversight in places like Syria, where chemical stockpiles remain a major threat, multiple human trafficking experts, particularly those with regional expertise in unstable and high-risk zones. He raised the question, why now? And why will we remove personnel with years, sometimes decades of specialized experience in areas the U.S. government itself identifies as high priority? From a neutral standpoint, it's a fair and serious concern. Regardless of who's in the White House, national security should never be collateral damage in bureaucratic restructuring. Senator Booker went even further. He accused Mr. Riggus and, by extension, the administration of lying both the Senate and House about who was being let go. He cited earlier testimony where Riggus claimed no consular affairs personnel would be affected, yet over 100 were fired. No one with overseas assignments will be touched, but Booker says he has examples contradicting that. No diplomatic security agents would be dismissed, also allegedly false. As a political analyst, I have to say this is serious. Not just because of the firings, but because trust and accountability between branches of government are essential. If members of Congress can't get straight answers during sworn testimony, it undermines the entire oversight process. In his defense, Mr. Riggus claimed the reductions in force were targeted at domestic positions. No law enforcement or frontline consular officers were cut. Everyone fired is still receiving pay and benefits for 60 to 120 days, depending on their status. Compassionate exceptions were made for some people with medical or family issues. He acknowledged the pain of job loss, but said the department had to put the mission first and make sure taxpayer dollars were being used effectively. Now, to be fair, reorganizations and staff reductions do happen in government. Agencies grow and shrink. Priorities shift. The federal workforce has expanded significantly since 2008, and some trimming may be justifiable. But here's the key issue: transparency and communication. If what Booker alleges is accurate, and these reductions were made with misleading information or without regard for mission-critical roles, that's a problem. A big one. Another major point raised: the spoiling of humanitarian aid. Thousands of pounds of taxpayer-funded food left to rot on docks due to bureaucratic failures. Booker described this as a symbol of dysfunction and misplaced values. And let's be honest, if true, it's an outrage. The idea that, while firing staff and claiming fiscal responsibility, we're letting food spoil while children starve, that's not fiscal conservatism. That's incompetence. Again, this isn't a partisan take. This is about effectiveness and moral leadership. So here's my take as your neutral political analyst. Senator Booker raised deeply troubling allegations, grounded in real stories and concrete examples. The human and strategic cost of these firings, if they happen as described, is high. On the other hand, Mr. Riggus made points worth noting. Yes, government staffing needs to be nimble. Yes, missions must be prioritized. Yes, change can be painful but necessary. But here's the bottom line. If the government is firing specialists mid-deployment, stranding personnel, or eliminating vital security roles, that's not just poor leadership, it's a potential national security breach. If testimony under oath has been misleading, that's a matter for congressional investigation. If cuts are being made under guise of fiscal discipline, while taxpayer-funded food is rotting on docks, that's not just mismanagement, that's a moral failure. The people who serve this country, whether in war zones, embassies, or behind desks, deserve honesty, transparency, and respect. Let's keep our eyes on this story. This hearing isn't just about one agency or one official. It's a reflection of how our institutions treat the people who keep them running. Thanks for watching. If you found this breakdown helpful, please hit that like button, subscribe for more independent political analysis, and drop your thoughts in the comments, especially if you're someone in government service or impacted by these changes. Until next time, stay informed, stay curious, and stay grounded.